Okay, well, good afternoon again. My name is Abigail Salazzo. Thank you all for taking the time out of your day to join us for today's chapter chat. We certainly appreciate that. Just as another reminder, in order to avoid any background noise or distractions, we ask that you please mute your phone unless, of course, you have a question or a comment. And if you've logged into the web portion, please feel free to use the chat function, as some of you may have just seen me use, if you have any questions or comments also. So let's go ahead and get started. During today's chat, we'll be going over several aspects of chapter management, but by the end of the call, you should be able to list the board members' responsibilities, understand our affiliate agreement as well as our bylaws, be able to identify our chapter rebate requirements, and understand how to navigate the chapter portal and ANFP Connect. Here, I just want to give you a generic view of a board organizational chart, just a sample here. And depending on your chapter, you may currently have members serving in all these roles you see here, or perhaps even more or fewer officers. And today, we're just going to focus on the roles that you see here on the organizational chart. And first, the president. So the president wears many hats. However, their main role, the president, is to lead. Members will look to you to take action, be accountable, and of course have answers. Maybe not all of them, but certainly most of them. The president should have a working knowledge of officer and committee roles and be willing to help other volunteers understand their duties and work with other members to establish annual goals. It's not just one person's decision, overall chapter goals, but really a consensus among your members as well as your board. They should provide timely and regular communication with your chapter members and update them as needed with anything urgent that comes up. Also, the president fulfills the duties throughout the year. They should also be mentoring and training the president-elect so they can competently take over their term after the president's term has ended. This ensures a seamless transition and continuation of ongoing projects as well as initiatives. And then, of course, they have administrative duties, and some of that includes in creating board agendas, board meeting agendas. A lot of times they are running the business meetings, and they do this usually by the Robert's Rules of Order or Parliamentary Procedure, which we actually just went over in our last chapter chat. So if you have not become to familiarize yourself with that, I suggest you take a look at our YouTube channel where you find last month's chapter chat on how to run an effective meeting. They also oversee committee activities, and of course they'll be submitting the chapter forms for rebate purposes. And they may or may not need to delegate some of those forms as well to other board members where it's appropriate. So this is really an overall overview of the president's responsibilities. It's really more task-driven that we've spoken about here. However, you'll see in the coming next couple of weeks, we are going to be sending out a link to the updated volunteer handbook. And within that, you'll notice the descriptions of some of the officers have changed. But really, we encourage you to use that as a guideline. It doesn't mean that you have to tick off every single responsibility that we have listed in the handbook. We really want to see our leaders really focused on more higher level overview type of responsibilities rather than the day-to-day work. Okay, but let's keep going with that being said. President-elect. As mentioned, the president-elect will need to learn the president's responsibilities and be prepared to take over their role in case of their absence or when their term is up, when the president's term is up. As the president-elect trains under the president, they create their own plan in order to implement chapter plans immediately upon their installation. Also, the president-elect plays a large part in succession planning as responsible for appointing committee chairs and members during the spring before their year as president. Some of their other responsibilities, again, more administrative tasks. They're going to recruit volunteers during the year. They'll be writing the tasks of each of their committees and explaining these to the volunteers. They'll also be making an effort to try to attend the national conference if possible. Of course, we like to see all of our members do that, but more so for the president-elect on behalf of their chapter. And they'll, of course, serve as a chapter member of the chapter finance committee as well if your chapter has one of those. So really the president and the president-elect should be working as a team whenever possible. It not only helps to balance the workload, it also allows the president-elect to learn the ropes through hands-on experience. And the role of the treasurer. Treasurer is responsible for chapter's financial matters, including maintaining the financial records for the chapter, maintaining the checking and savings accounts, and reporting the financial condition of the chapter to the board and the membership. Additionally, the chapter will be asked to prepare the annual budget with input from other board members. They also should understand state policies and procedures, and that does vary from state to state. So for those of you who are not familiar with your state fiscal responsibilities or regulations in regards to a nonprofit, I would encourage you to check out your state website and look into those a little bit more closely. The treasurer is also responsible for completing the ACH form, which is what you see here. This is for the form when the chapter sets up or perhaps changes their checking or savings account. They'll need to complete this form. Then we ask that they attach it to a blank voided check and then return that here at the national office. So this form would allow us to make the direct deposit for your chapter's rebate. So certainly an important form. And of course, treasurers are responsible for completing the IRS 990 form annually. This is for tax exemption and rebate purposes. Some of you have probably received my email, which included instructions as to how to file the 990 form. And just a reminder, it's due July 15th. And if you're going through the process and you have questions, certainly feel free to reach out to me. I've walked a number of our members through it already. And so once you file this correctly, you'll receive an email confirmation, and it's going to look like just what you see here on your screen. You'll need your tax ID number to complete this, but if you don't know your chapter's tax ID and you are actually the treasurer, the person filing this, just give me a call and I'll be sure to pass along that information to you. Additionally, the treasurer works with an accountant for an annual audit if this is required by your state. Again, you'll need to look into that. They're responsible for reimbursement and paying bills. They develop a use for excess funds to benefit the ANFP chapters along with their other board members, certainly not one person's decision. And we want to be sure that we're having all of our accounts audited before passing on our books to the incoming treasurer or as according to our bylaws, depending on the chapter. All right, so let's move on here to our treasurer-elect responsibilities. Many of our chapters don't have this role within their boards. However, new this year, we are really strongly recommending that each chapter begin to elect or appoint a member in this role. We feel it's a crucial role because the treasurer's role, they do have quite a bit of responsibility. It does take a little while to learn. So it's wonderful if they can start to gain some of that knowledge and insight and the best practices before they officially take office. And they do serve under the treasurer, and they would actually assume their duties in his or her absence. They'll learn to assist with the processes related to budgets and auditing as well, so it's a great learning experience. I also want to point out this volunteer, this role would actually be included as part of the executive committee, and they would be included in all matters related to the executive committee as well. And similar to the president and the president-elect, the treasurer and the treasurer-elect should be working as a team in order to streamline the chapter's finances from term to term. Immediate past presidents are really a wealth of knowledge and typically have the most experience on the board. They're great resources and should be included in the decision-making process for chapter-related business. They should be viewed as mentors to not only board members, but all of our volunteers as well. You know, some of them have served multiple terms, so they really have a lot of history on your chapter and really should be used as consultants to help make your decisions for your overall chapter. And last is the role of the secretary. The secretary is responsible for many of the business aspects of the board. They are responsible for notifying members of upcoming board and business meetings and recording the minutes for these meetings. They assist the president-elect in staying updated on district activities. If your chapter happens to have districts, not all of them do. The secretary also ensures the chapter's policies and procedures are kept up to date and that National is made aware of any of those updates. Now, I know some of you are still using the election format when it comes to officers, which is okay. However, we are hoping to see a shift among our chapters in these next year or so. We'd like to see all of our chapters move to the slate process, which is how National currently handles our board and committees. But that's a discussion for another day. So currently, if you do have the election process, the secretary would oversee the ballots or the slate preparations and the voting procedures, of course. They also oversee activities of the newsletter editor as well as the membership committee. They really work hand in hand either with the membership chair or the membership committee. They can be the ones to invite students to the state and district meetings. They should be well versed on the benefits of the ANFP membership as well as becoming a CDM. And then, of course, they want to work with the membership committee to contact new, dropped, or potential members. So, know I threw a lot out there. Are there any questions right now?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm from New York. I was wondering, last I knew there were templates in our volunteer resource in which we had formatted, the National had already formatted for us templates to reach out to new student members and to members that have been inactivated in the accounts. And I'm having problems trying to find that on the website. Does that still exist?
Okay. It does still exist. Once you're logged into ANFP Connect under Volunteer Resources, and I believe it's under Sample Templates. If you're not able to find it there, certainly we can discuss offline. I'd be happy to walk you through it. But I did just see that there earlier this week.
I saw the page, but it didn't actually, the templates parts wouldn't open up. The only thing that opened was the Career Network part.
Okay. With ANFP Connect, you do have to be logged in. So you log into the member page, and then you would simply just hit the sign in button, which is on the top right-hand corner of the ANFP Connect page, and everything should show at that point. But again, if you like help with that process, we can definitely discuss that after the call.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Sure, of course. Are there any other questions right now? Okay, and for those of you that just joined us, I would just like to remind you to put your phones on mute unless you have any questions or comments, so this is a way we can avoid any background noise or distractions. Super. All right, we're going to keep going here. On to affiliate agreement and bylaws. So these are really more chapter-specific topics, starting with the affiliate agreement, which is an agreement between all chapters and ANFP National. And it basically demonstrates the mutual partnership between the two groups and also benefits both groups. There are several terms listed within the agreement, and some of these obligate ANFP and others obligate the chapter. So for instance, ANFP, we grant the exclusive right to chapters to be affiliated with the ANFP and use that name within your marketing materials, on your websites, and your newsletter. We also, of course, host and edit the approved chapter website, as many of you are now familiar with and know very well. We also, as National, pay dues rebates to each of our chapters as long as they meet our minimum standards as well as the other rebate requirements. And of course, this rebate is sent out biannually. And of course, we have dedicated ANFP staff to maintain and enhance the chapter relationship. So this includes me, as well as Beth VTech, which some of you will become familiar with. She also supports chapters. And of course, really any of our ANFP staff here at National are always here to help with any questions that you might have. And so in return, our chapters agree to meet and maintain our chapter minimum standards, which we'll go over in just a little bit. We also ask you comply with ANFP and your chapter bylaws. Some of those will vary from state to state. We ask you to partner with us in promoting the membership in ANFP because that really does benefit both groups. And of course, using our ANFP programs also benefits both groups. And of course, establish and practice sound fiscal policy to be self-sufficient. We also ask, as part of the minimum standards, that you're completing the 990 form, which we just touched on. And we're also asking our chapters to make the shift, if they haven't done so already, to follow our national fiscal year, which starts on June 1st and ends on May 31st. Many of our board members, or your board members, should be familiar with the affiliate agreement and be able to explain this to their own members or answer any questions. And for those of you that are new to volunteering, you should be familiarizing yourself with these terms as well, especially if you plan to run for office or you'd like to sit in a leadership role. So that's sort of the gist of affiliate agreements. Again, those should be available to you if you haven't seen those already. Does anybody have any questions about that? No, it's pretty straightforward document, but certainly if you're going through it and you have questions, feel free to reach out to staff here, and we'll be happy to answer those. Bylaws are considered a legal document, and they dictate how the organization must be governed. They're in place to keep the chapter running efficiently and staying organized. They ensure member inclusion and fair opportunities for all chapter members. With ANFP chapter bylaws, they've actually been adapted from our own national bylaws, so you'll notice a lot of the similar language if you're using our template. Chapters are asked to review and submit their bylaws each year. And if you don't have a template, or if you'd like to start using one, that is also available on ANFP Connect. However, if you are creating your own bylaws and not using a template, I would ask that you include terms on finances, membership, board of directors, elections, or as we talked about, the slate process, your annual meetings, and of course any committees that you may have within your chapter. And some of you that are familiar with the other governing documents may notice that bylaws are very similar to our policies and procedures, and in some cases have very similar language, if not exactly the same. However, bylaws tend to be a little bit broader, and they don't really include the how-to, such as the policies and the procedures does. Additionally, any changes or revisions that your chapter has to the bylaws, these need to be approved by the entire membership, whereas the revisions to any policies and procedures, these can be approved by the board only. You do not need your membership consent on that. Again, I would just encourage you to take some time to be sure you understand each of the provisions within your bylaws, along with your policies and procedures. And both of these documents should, of course, be reviewed annually as well. Any questions on bylaws right now? No. Okay, and again, feel free to use your chat function. We can check on that also. So let's move on to chapter minimum standards. In order for chapters to be considered active and to be eligible for rebates, a chapter must meet a set of standards. The standards are listed in the Volunteer Handbook. Again, this is available on ANFP Connect under Volunteer 101. We're going to have a new version of the handbook coming out in the next couple of weeks. We'll, of course, alert all of our chapter leaders when that's available for download. There won't be a ton of changes. You'll see we've made some areas more robust, and we've slimmed down some others. And we hope you still find it just as useful. But within the chapter standards, there's a number of things that you must meet, including completing the State Achievement Award, which there are 2 parts. You must submit your volunteer names for the upcoming volunteer year. So we just recently went through this, and I know some of you did not have any difficulty with that, while some of our other members did. And I hope that we made it clear that we ask any new officers that will be, not even new officers, officers to be updated within our system or the chapter portal by June 1st. Some of you may or may not know our system is actually hard-coded to only recognize our chapter leaders' terms for 1 year, starting on June 1st to May 31st. So regardless of how long their term is or when it ends, we do ask that our offices are updated every year before June 1st. And certainly as you walk through that process, if you haven't already done so, feel free to give us a call if you have any questions. Another standard is that we ask you hold a fall chapter educational meeting. That is part of the rebate requirements. Maintain communications with your members, of course. We ask that all member correspondence is sent to ANFP headquarters. This is a way to keep us updated and in the know of the most recent ongoing chapter. And of course, just as we discussed, submitting annual updates to chapter bylaws and policies and procedures. And we want to, of course, encourage attendance. At least one chapter leader at our annual conference. That's always wonderful when a state can have even just one person there representing them. We'd like to see you hold board of directors elections each year or as directed by your own chapter bylaws. So this may not happen every year, but every 2 years. And hold regularly scheduled board of directors meeting is also something that we feel very strongly about, and that should be also a standard that you are continually meeting. So this is the full list of standards, and it's in the book. And additionally, we've just added a checklist to ANFP Connect that gives you more of an understanding of the rebates and the timelines and things of that nature as well. And of course, just as we discussed earlier, in addition to the chapter minimum standards, all chapters are required to file the 990 and submit a signed affiliate agreement. And so once the chapter has met all the standards as well as the other requirements for the rebate by the specified deadlines, of course, they will be eligible to receive a biannual rebate, which will be directly deposited to the assigned bank account. Really, the purpose of rebates is to help offset costs of running the chapter and, of course, to provide support to your members. Amounts are going to be based on the number of members, so it really benefits chapters to continually grow their membership and recruit new members. Typically, the first half of the rebate is distributed as early as July 15th, and the second half is typically distributed sometime in later January. And prior, of course, to the distribution of the first portion, ANFP will allot $135 from each chapter for bonding insurance, and this is regardless of the size. So whether you have 500 members or 50 members, we still take $135 for each chapter for bonding insurance. And then here is the breakdown of the dollar amount based on membership. So the middle column here is the total amount minus the $135, and the last column is the two separate payment amounts. And of course, this would be minus the $135. So that first payment, if you are a chapter of 74 members, you would have the first payment of $350 minus $135, which is $215, and then your second payment, as long as you met the rebate requirements, would be $350. And you're going to receive some reminders throughout the year for each of the rebate requirement deadlines. But in the meantime, you might want to look ahead and determine who will be responsible for what. So for instance, we always suggest the president reviews and signs the affiliate agreements, while the treasurer would file the 990 form. As a board, you'll just need to review the policies and procedures as well as the bylaws, but of course you'll need to determine who will handle the administrative side of things, who's going to keep these copies, who's going to submit these documents to National. Additionally, if you wanted to apply for any of the chapter awards, you may wish to incorporate these requirements into your own checklist and assign those duties as well. And again, just wanted to let you know that we do have a new document living under ANFP Connect Volunteer Resources that is also a checklist not only of responsibilities, but includes the chapter requirements as well. But you might want to you may wish to include some of these awards, some of the chapter's awards into your checklist as well. So before we actually dive into awards, I just want to see if there's any questions about what we've discussed in terms of chapter standards and rebates. Anybody? Okay, and again, this information is in the volunteer handbook, but as you go through it or the entire process, certainly feel free to reach out to staff here. We're happy to help. Okay. And chapter awards. There are several chapter awards available to all of our chapters. The first is the State Achievement Award, or SAA. And as mentioned earlier, it's one of the rebate requirements. The State Achievement Award allows us to hear about the chapter's goals and understand the strategies to accomplish these goals, as well as progress they are making throughout the year. They'll ask questions pertaining to onboarding of chapter officers, membership recruitment, communication, and of course other areas of chapter management. Not only is this award, the State Achievement Award should also be used as a planning tool for chapters' goals and other business. It's a great way to determine progress and success for the chapter, since the criteria for this award is composed of status updates. So really a helpful tool when it comes to planning your annual goals. There are also 4 other awards available for chapters. Each of these awards is optional and they are not tied to the rebate. And these awards include the Communications, Government Affairs, Membership, and the Diamond Award. The first 3 awards are exactly as described, so Communications, Government Affairs, and Membership. And all criteria for each award are listed within the applications, which can be found within the chapter portal, the applications for those specific awards. And again, I just want to stress that these should really be used as planning tools. So once you take a look at the application and you can check off each of the criteria, chances are not only will you be successful with your goals pertaining to these particular categories, but chances are you may win one of these awards, if not all. So again, take a look through those before you start planning your annual goals. And of course, the Diamond Award. The Diamond Award is the most prestigious award a chapter can receive. It's based on innovative best practices that help further the growth and success of the chapter, which in turn does the same for national. And for those of you that attended ACE, you'll know that Iowa received our Diamond Award this year. So anybody on the call from Iowa, congratulations again. They came up with a really unique program called the Year of the Better You, and they focused on physical well-being, emotional well-being, as well as their volunteer service. And all of this really helps come together in an attempt to make stronger, more efficient, and better leaders, not only for their chapter, but in their professional lives as well. And of course, you know, this all feeds into their membership, which helps everybody in the end. So really a great, innovative program. We're very excited for them and very excited to see what our other chapters bring to the table next year. And of course, it was tough competition. We had really a great number of applicants for the Diamond Award this year, and I think the chapter leadership team had a really difficult time choosing. But again, congratulations to Iowa. Okay, so sorry, a little off course there. So back to the Diamond Award. If a chapter wishes to be eligible for the Diamond Award, they must complete the Communications, Government Affairs, Membership, as well as both parts of the State Achievement Award. They also must score a certain percentage on each award. As you see here, we have it broken down. Again, award criteria should be used when setting chapter goals and planning for the year ahead if you've not already done that. So when you're checking off each of the criteria and entering the information, please enter it in complete sentences along with any details, and of course we love to see examples. You know, when we see examples and details and backup documents, you really increase your chances of being in the running for the Diamond Award. And of course, bragging rights for the year, so what could be better? All right, so any questions here about awards? No? Okay, and again, those applications are available for download within the chapter portal. And speaking of the chapter portal, we're going to go ahead and cover that now. As volunteer leaders, you should have access to the chapter portal as long as you were entered in by June 1st, or you know, you've had that change happen. And the chapter portal is really a platform that allows you to gain access to a number of things that not all of our members have access to. You can also post reports, of course, update your officers' information. You're able to pull rosters and submit any website edits. And once you've been granted access to the portal, we encourage you to become very familiar with the functions because it actually is a very handy tool. So I'm just going to pause here. If you'll bear with me, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the chapter portal. Give me 1 second here. We're going to go through a brief tutorial. Bear with me here. Takes just a moment. Okay, and I am going to be logging in as Christy Salisbury, who many of you probably know. She's a past president. She's the chair of the chapter leadership team, very active and engaged with ANFP. Okay, here. And I'm going to begin to share my screen again so you can all see. Oh, you know what? 1 second here. My apologies. Does anybody have any questions in the meantime? Or anything that we've discussed up until this point? No? Okay. All right, so I'm actually going to be using Sean Williams, who's with our Kansas chapter. So I hope everybody who's logged in can see where we are right now. So first we need to log in to the regular ANFP member portal, which you see I've already done here. And once you've logged in, you'll want to go to the left-hand side of the screen and select Chapter Portal. And so when you select Chapter Portal, this is the page it's going to bring up. From here, you'll see the chapter info page, which is an overview of the chapter events, and that, of course, gives the chapter president. You'll see here you can filter by state. So if you wanted to pull up Arkansas, you could certainly do that here. And again, it lists their most recent, their upcoming state meeting and the chapter president. So let's go ahead and we're going to go back to Kansas. And the next tab here, you have current officers. This is where you can find a list of all your state chapters, current officers' contact information. You can also export this list directly from this page by hitting the export button down here on the right-hand side. And let's go ahead and hit that, and I'll just show you how that pulls up. So you're going to get another window. It'll download. Most of it will download immediately. And then here you go. You have a full listing to choose to do whatever you choose to do with that list of current officers. Okay. And let's close out of that, and here we are. All right, so next on to officer and volunteer management. This is where you'd go to update, add, or change our officers prior to the volunteer year, as we mentioned, or if they change mid-year. As you can see here, the following individuals these are the current officers or volunteers, and you can change or remove these names throughout the year if someone should step down, but a president and a treasurer are required to be on the record at all times. And so say some of you have an early spring meeting in March, and you decide who your incoming officers are going to be. As of April 1st each year, you can begin to enter these incoming officers. However, they won't appear on the chapter website until 6/1. As the volunteer year doesn't start until 6/1, same as our fiscal year. But if it is March and you're adding your officers, you just want to be sure to clear the member's name, or to add the electee upcoming term. And this will automatically select the term starting June 1st. So when you do that, you won't see them appear, but you can always reach out to us, double check to make sure that we have that recorded in our system. Some of you have probably already walked through this process, so I'm not going to go through it again, and I have a how-to for those that are not familiar with it, which I'm happy to share with you. But for those of you that have not gone through the process and updated your officers, you would need to go to the add position, which would be right here, because we are in the current term, what we consider to be the current term, regardless if that person is going to be serving until the fall. So any questions here? I know many of our members have already completed this process. And if you have officer changes mid-year, and so you just you forget how to go through this, certainly give me a call, and we'll help you through that. We will be sending out a reminder sometime in August or September to those that are changing mid-year to update their officers.
I do have a question on that. If we did not have all of our people in place as of June 1st, is that going to hold us back from being eligible for our rebate?
So no, I mean, it won't. Certainly we'd like to see them in there as soon as possible. We understand things come up, but even if you have officers, again, that their term is extended till the fall or till next year, they still need to be updated in there. The one problem with not getting them in there before June 1st is that, again, our system is hard-coded, so as of May 31st midnight, if there's nobody in there for the next term, nobody on your chapter board will have access to the chapter portal. If that's the case, then you just need to send us a name of one of your officers, and we can go in, of course, back at the house and add them in manually so you can regain access to the chapter portal.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right, any other questions?
Yes. Doodle, I am unfamiliar with Doodle. Could you give us some more information on that?
Yes, I'm actually going to get to that in just a little bit. I just want to complete our chapter portal tutorial, and then I'll be jumping into some other communication resources and tools, including Doodle. Okay, any other questions related to chapter portal at this point? No? Okay, let's keep going. Next is the Chapter Management tab, and under this tab you can update or add your chapter meeting information, as you'll see right here. So you would edit it right here, and you can also update the contact person. So maybe it's not the president, but maybe it's somebody else that should be contacted for questions. And of course, this is where you would go to download your 990, or I'm sorry, your award applications. If you wanted to upload your 990 receipt, your affiliate agreement, this is where you would go to look for those files that are always available. You'll see we don't have a couple of them up there. We are working on getting that updated. We have been having a few issues with our database management system, so I do apologize. But of course, if you wanted those documents immediately, definitely reach out to me and I'd be happy to email those out until we can get this issue resolved. Okay, and then also, one of the questions I always get is, I get a call from a member and they say, hey, I sent you guys the first part of my State Achievement Award, but I see in the system it's still marked as incomplete. So we track everything on the back end within our own system. So if you do not upload into the chapter portal where it says upload document here, it will show as incomplete. So if you sent it to the chapter's address or to me directly, I do not go in and make the change in here, but we do mark it internally. So if you ever have any doubts, if you've emailed in something and you don't see it marked as complete here, please feel free to give us a call and we can confirm whether or not we actually received it. Okay, let's keep going here. Next is the rosters. So from here you're able to pull a full roster of your chapter's membership. This is where everything will pull up here immediately when you hit this tab, and you could export your full list right here. If you wanted to export by a certain zip code, you could filter that as well. Or if you wanted to do a certain event. So let's just see, let's go with the 2014 National Leadership. And you go here and hit export this list. It will ask you for zip codes. You can specify, or if you leave it blank, it'll pull up everybody that attended the 2014 NLC. So let's go ahead and pull that. And again, it should download immediately into an Excel file. And here you can sort the information, filter it any which way you choose. Okay. Additionally, if you wanted to do any filtering by city, you could absolutely do that here, certification, as you'll see all the filters that are available. And let's see, the next tab is for pulling chapter reports. As you can see here, you can pull various reports, including new members, new students, or pre-professional, as well as your inactive members. So very handy tool here. You would simply click View Report. And here you may be prompted, depending on what report you're pulling, you might be asked for a date range. So if you wanted to get new members from this time last year to today, you would just need to enter that in. But again, here is your list downloaded into an Excel file. Nice and neat, and you can sort and filter that information as needed, of course. Okay, and let's move on to the last tab. This is the chapter website update. It will pull up into a new window. And this is where you can submit any information you'd like posted on your chapter website. Meeting information, volunteer opportunities, any chapter news. You would just need to complete each of the fields that we have here. And if you wanted to upload a document, this is also where you could do your file upload. And so once you have your information completed, if you have additional instructions, you note where you want it seen on available on your chapter website tab, you hit submit, and this goes directly to our chapter's inbox. We do watch that daily, and of course we try to post anything within 24 to 48 hours, as long as it's submitted during the week, on a business day. So we really encourage you to submit your contact to the website as often as you can, as much as you like. Your websites are a great communication tool to keep your members informed and engaged. So really consider sending anything in to bulk up any of the content that you have on there. All right, any other questions at this time? I know we went through that rather quickly, so if you happen to log into the portal and you come across questions, definitely feel free to give us a call. And we will be working on some video tutorials for our volunteer leaders, and this will include the chapter portal tutorial. So be looking for that in the next couple of months. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go back to our presentation and finish up. And let's see, here we go. Oh, my apologies. And it's not going to bring me back to where I need to go. So 1 second here. Okay, so I know we just received a question about Doodle, so great intro to that. Some of you may or may not be familiar with Doodle, which is a free online scheduling tool. It allows you to present a various number of options for date and time that would allow you to schedule an event or a phone call. And what you would do is select your date. So say you want to possibly have a phone call during the first week of July. You would go in there, select the date, select the times that you'd like to propose, and you'd walk through all the steps. It's very, very user-friendly, and you would receive a link in your email. At that time, you'd send out the link to your participants for those you want to take the survey, and they would be able to indicate the dates and times that they're available for the event. And then, of course, once you look at the results, you'd see when most of your participants, if not all of them, are available for an event or a phone call. So really a very handy scheduling tool, and it's free. So I know somebody had asked about that, but I wanted to address any questions that you might have with that.
How do we get to it?
Doodle, it's the, I don't know if you're logged on, but you'll see here, it's www.doodle.com. And you don't need an account. Yeah, it's a website.
So, no,
you don't need an account.
Okay, it's a general website. I thought it was because I'm logged in, following you along as you were going through things. So it's not on ANFP website.
No, it's not anything like that. It's just a communication tool, but very user friendly. It'll walk you through everything step by step. And it's become a very handy tool, I know, when I'm working with my committees. So I'm not sending out email after email asking people what dates and times they have available. I can just send them to one place. They can fill out the information, then I can look at the snapshot. Any other questions about Doodle? No? Okay. I know some of our members have asked for a free conference calling service, and Uber Conference is one of those. You can schedule either last-minute or advanced conference calls. Additionally, you can record your calls just as we're doing here today. You can also share your screen just as we're doing here today. So if you wanted to do a presentation, it's a great tool to use. And of course, you know, certainly an alternate when you aren't able to meet face-to-face, and it's free. So it's a wonderful tool, and I know some of our chapters have started to make use of it. Also, free conference calling is also available. I'm not terribly familiar with this service, but I do know it's very similar to Uber. Again, if you weren't able to meet face-to-face, certainly over the phone is the next best option, especially if you're able to share your screen and see each other that way. Both of these will allow that. And of course, GoToMeeting, as we're using today. This is another conference calling service, but there are fees involved. And of course, with fees involved, it's a little bit more upgraded, so there's additional features available that might not be available with Uber Conference or free conference calling. And then we also have SurveyMonkey. Many of you are probably familiar with SurveyMonkey, as this is how we create and distribute our surveys from national. So those of you that attended ACE, you probably received a survey last week. This was created in SurveyMonkey. Now, any surveys that are under 10 questions are free with SurveyMonkey. So if you just want to do a quick survey with your members to gauge, you know, their thoughts or their reaction to something, this would be a great tool to use. However, you do need to set up an account before you're able to create surveys. But again, this, like Doodle, it's very, very user-friendly. And coming soon, this is something I'm really excited about, and I've been wanting to develop this since I've joined the ANFP team, and this is our chapter leaders online community. It's a community that's strictly for chapter leaders, so would allow our leaders throughout the country to connect to each other on a daily basis. It's really it'll be similar to Open Forum for those of you that use that or view the messages. So you'll be able to post questions or any issues related to chapters on this forum, and of course, you know, share your knowledge and your experience with other chapter leaders. And it will be living under ANFP Connect just as Open Forum does. So look for that email in the coming months. Very, very excited about that, because currently the only way we have to communicate with other chapter leaders is through chapter chats, as we're doing today, or through email. So this will be a much easier to access platform for our chapter leaders to connect with one another. And then, of course, another communication resource here today is our chapter chats. We hope that you use this as a resource, and we hope that you share the information that you gain here with your other members, or even, we really want to start encouraging our leaders to share the invite. We certainly welcome all volunteers on the call. And of course, the link that we send out post-chat, that is available to all of our members as well. And we hope that you use those chapter chats as your own communication or resource. And websites, they're also a great communication tool, as we just discussed. And we encourage our members to use them regularly and frequently and submit content whenever possible. ANFP meetings are really an ideal way to communicate with our members, though we understand this is not always possible due to time and resources, things of that nature. And of course, there's good old-fashioned email and phone calls, that always works. We know it's a surefire way of communicating with each other, and a lot of times the most common way to communicate with each other. So, okay, any questions that we have here about any of the communication resources that we discussed?
I have a question in regards, does ANFP support us utilizing Facebook? Like if we were to create a chapter Facebook page, is that okay?
Yes, absolutely. We would love to see more of our chapters using that if they're not already. We think it's a great platform to reach perhaps other members, or I should say non-members, that are not familiar with ANFP. Also a great way to keep your members engaged and informed, since almost everybody, not everyone, is on Facebook. Yeah, so absolutely. Okay. And if you do create that Facebook page and you'd like to link it back to your website, your chapter website, go ahead and send us that link and we'll link the two together.
Oh, awesome. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? No? Okay, super. And then we're just going to wrap up here. We're going to briefly cover ANFP Connect. I know that many of you are already familiar with this, but it's our member portal, and it contains just a plethora of information and resources. Not all of you might yet be familiar with volunteer resources, but it is a section dedicated for information and tools just for our volunteers. Okay, here. And a lot of what's in there are the templates, the how-tos, any of the forms that you might need. So if you wanted to request a sign, we do rent that free to our chapters. That form would be there. Of course, anything related to CE prior approval, as we've already discussed, the volunteer handbook, and the speaker resource guide, which probably doesn't get enough attention, but it's a really great resource for those looking for speakers at their educational meetings. So let's go ahead and just take a quick look at volunteer resources. So again, you would need to log in to ANFP online. You go ahead and click on the ANFP Connect, which is at the top right-hand corner here. I'm not sure if everybody can see my mouse. It'll then take you to the screen that you see here. So you'd go to the menu bar and select Volunteer Resources. And I think we just talked about this earlier in the call, that if you may need to sign in again. We've restricted some of that access, and you would see the sign in button up here at the top if you were not signed in. It shouldn't ask you for your username and password again. You should just be able to click sign in and then be logged in automatically. But if you do, it's going to be the same username and password that you used to log in to the member portal. Okay, so the first section that would appear is the Volunteer 101. And this includes many of our basic tools and resources that you would need for the first time volunteering with ANFP. It includes things like the chapter chat schedule, which has just recently been updated, so I would encourage you to look at that. How to report CE, so those of you that are not yet familiar, the self-reporting, that's in there as well. If you wanted to set up a PayPal account, so if you have an upcoming fall meeting and you wanted to provide a link for payment through PayPal, we have instructions here how to do that. How to pull a chapter roster, so we just went through that, but in case you need a refresher, that's there. If you wanted to recruit new volunteers, and then if you needed some tips on how to create a really great newsletter, this is also under Volunteer 101. Also in here is a volunteer handbook. This is where you find the volunteer handbook. And again, just to note, an updated version is going to be uploaded in the next couple of weeks, and it will live here. And you'll receive an announcement when that is ready to download. And many of the things that we've discussed here today are also going to be included in the handbook. If they're not in the handbook, then they'll be available on ANFP Connect under Volunteer Resources. And again, be on the lookout for volunteer handbook. And then, of course, the next section is board governance. Board governance are really more resources and tools for those that are serving as officers. However, if you're considering volunteering for a board position in the future, you might want to begin to familiarize yourself with some of these documents, like the affiliate agreement, parliamentary procedure, or even the state budget template. You're going to see here some great resources here for governance purposes. Installation script, how to conduct an effective meeting, if you happen to be the secretary, how to take minutes, and of course setting goals, which is something that all officers and really members should be familiar with. And next are the sample templates. These are the various templates that you'll find useful as a volunteer, including board minutes, the agenda template, invite letter to the new students, which I think we'd also discussed earlier. If you were doing a call for volunteers, we have the volunteer interest form, a very useful tool. And just a reminder, these are only samples. If you wanted to download these and edit them as you feel that they're better used, that's fine. If you have your own templates for some of these, that's fine too. These are just here to help if you needed a place to get started. And then last are meeting resources. Meeting resources contains templates and tools that you might need to run, well, you probably will need to run a successful chapter or an educational meeting. And then again, this includes the CE private approval form as well as any of the supporting documents. So if you needed the certificate of attendance, if you needed a sample of an evaluation, those things are here also. And additionally, there are other documents to help with the planning of the meeting, including a checklist, a speaker invite template, and the speaker directory or the program resource guide. And this is where also you would find the request form if you wanted to rent the pull-up banner or the ANFP tablecloth, which is always kind of a nice little touch when you're holding your meeting, or if you're going to another organization's meetings and you have a booth. This is where you'd find the form to request that of National. So as you can see here, there's just a lot of great resources and tools and templates within this section. Again, we're going to be working on updating these and adding more throughout the year. In the meantime, you know, use this to your advantage. There's really a wealth of information here, and we hope that each of you finds it useful within your role. All right, so I know we covered quite a bit. I hope you have a basic understanding of how chapters operate and how the roles fit into the chapter that you're currently a part of. And I just want to stop here to see if you have any questions about anything that we discussed today in regards to chapters. Anybody? No? Okay, any comments or best practices that they'd like to share? Okay, well, certainly if something comes up, you know, later on and you think of it, feel free to reach out to me. Again, my name is Abigail Salazzo, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have related to chapters. And I just want to say thank you all again for joining us today. I really do hope that you found the information applicable to your volunteer role and that it hopefully serves you well throughout the year. We hope that you'll be able to join us next month, where we're going to be discussing chapter finances. That'll include budget development, financial literacy, audit and the finance committee, and as well as some of our financial policies. Thank you all again, and have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.